Let's talk about internal affairs. They're like hall monitors for police departments. Hey guys, what's going on? I hope everybody has had a fantastic weekend so far. This whole week has been so much work. My brain has been fried over this last week. Like, this has seriously got to be the hardest course that I've ever gone through. For those of you that haven't been following, I'm in a digital forensics class right now, and it is intense. If you don't have some sort of a technical background, you're going to be lost. So I get a lot of questions from you guys asking about the process of internal affairs and how it all works and who polices the police. Well, Internal Affairs does. So Internal Affairs is basically a division within a department that investigates officers for misconduct or criminal acts. Most officers that are chosen for Internal Affairs are either the rank of sergeant or above, and they usually have previous experience in investigations, either as a detective or in drug squad or something of the like. And the interesting thing about Internal Affairs is a lot of times they don't have a chain of command. A lot of times they just report directly to the chief. So they try to cut down on how many people these investigative reports have to go through before they finally get to the chief. So a lot of times it just goes directly to the chief. And the IA person is really the only person that reports directly to the chief, other than some of the civilians that work there, whether it be in like records or obviously the chief's assistant. And there are on occasions where the IA sergeant or lieutenant, whoever's doing IA, they'll actually enlist the help of detectives and drug squad to help them with their investigation. I mean, if it's on that big of a scale, if you find an officer that's like moving drugs or something like that, a lot of times they'll bring in people from other divisions that they know they can trust to help with their investigation on that officer. Very rarely is IA ever going to ask patrol officers for help. Usually patrol officers are the ones that they have the most problems with, because in most departments, new officers are going to start in patrol. And that's kind of where people get weeded out as far as, whether they're trustworthy, whether they're doing shit they're not supposed to be doing. A lot of that is kind of snipped in the butt before they go to a specialized division like detectives or drug squad or something like that. So most of the people you see in specialized divisions have usually been with the department for a while. People know that they have good character and stuff, but some people slip through the cracks too. I mean, it happens. Investigating another officer is not a job that I personally want to do. I know just from talking to other detectives and stuff, it's probably going to be inevitable. At some point, you're going to be asked to help IA watch an officer, either do surveillance or, just help them along the lines of their investigation. And that's not something I want to do. It's not that I don't want to do it because, I'm trying to cover for other people. That's not it. I don't want to do it because, of course, I don't want to believe that there's officers that are doing shit that they shouldn't be doing. But unfortunately, I know that is not a logical way to be thinking. And it's legitimately got to be kind of difficult to be an IA sergeant. I mean, think about it. Like, the last department I was at, they secluded this guy. They put him in a whole separate building by himself. He was the only officer in that building. There might have been one other officer, but it was administrative. So once in a while, I would see him standing outside, and he would be smoking a cigarette. He'd be drinking some coffee, and that was it. He went right back into his office. And the sergeant that they picked at that time was actually one of my former sergeants on patrol. So he used to want me to come over to the office just to keep him company, because he was by himself all the time, which of course I would have no problem with. I love that shit. But most people not so much. I'm weird. I like to be alone more than the average person. But anyway, this guy would always tell me, he would always be like, hey, come on over, man. I'll make a pot of coffee and, you can kick your feet up and we'll chat and all that. And I stopped by a couple of times. That's not something I did on a regular basis. You don't really want to be hanging out with the IA sergeant. But having that job is not something that most people want to do. I mean, you are basically labeled as the department's rat. You were the snitch of the department. Most of the people that are put into an IA position are very decorated. They have a lot of training. They have a lot of, like I said, investigative experience. A lot of them are certified in giving polygraphs. It just really depends on the department too. You have some smaller departments where somebody might not be as qualified to be an IA sergeant or something, but it really just depends on the department size. But most of the time, it's going to be very qualified people for the position that are non-biased. That is the most important thing. You have to be non-biased when you are in that position. If you're policing the police, you have to have a lot of responsibility. Like, you have to have your priorities straight. You need to be organized. But most of all, like I said, you have got to be non-biased over anything else. Whether you're friends with another officer or whether, you guys went to the academy together, none of that should matter if you are investigating that officer for something that they weren't supposed to do. And that's That's a hard position to be in. So I think when I first realized that IA was something that I did not want to do, when I was a very young new officer, I had a secret place that I would park. So I would go to this place, I would park, and I would get my reports done. That way I was out of sight. I didn't have to worry about, an ambush or anything like that. So I would park in this very private spot where you could see anybody coming in. Nobody could come up behind you. But one day I go over there and I see a car. And I pull in, and right as I am about to get on the radio and call out the suspicious vehicle, I see legs hanging out of the back door. I also see a male standing there with his pants down. And he quickly pulls them up real quick. Her legs go inside the car, he shuts the car door, and before I know it, he's walking to my car with a badge out. And of course, my natural reaction anytime somebody walks up to my car is, I'm going to get out of the car. I don't want to be stuck inside my car. I get out of the car, I'm between the door and the body of the car. Well, he comes up with his badge out, and I recognized him. He was working undercover, and the first thing he said to me was, I am with a confidential informant right now, and you need to leave. I should have questioned him more, I guess. But everybody here in this local area anyway is basically kind of taught in FTO that if Drug Squad tells you to do something, you do it. Because you could mess up some huge operation that you don't know that they have going on. And that's another thing. Most patrol officers have no idea what Drug Squad is doing. And they do that so information isn't leaked out. Really, the people that are trusted with the biggest secrets are people in CID as a detective and people in Drug Squad. Outside of that, there's not a lot of secrets that people know. So I did what I thought was best at the time, and I hauled ass from there. And I ended up calling another buddy of mine who was also in Drug Squad at the time. And I told him, I was like, dude, please don't say anything to anybody, but this is just what happened. Like, what should I do? And he was like, dude, don't say anything about it. Take it to your grave. Don't tell another soul. That's the end of it. Let that be the end of it. So I did what I thought was best at the time, and I never told anybody. Until 15 minutes later, when the captain over the entire drug squad called me. When he called me, he said, Officer so-and-so, you are going to tell me exactly what you just saw 20 minutes ago, and you better not fucking lie to me. So needless to say, at this point, I was scared out of my mind. I was pissed at myself for the fact that I told who I thought was a buddy of mine, and he ended up telling the captain himself my findings. So this guy has about 25 years of investigative experience. I figured it was probably in my best interest not to lie to him. So I ended up telling him the entire truth. His punishment, the guy that I rolled up on, he got sent back to patrol. I don't even know if internal affairs ever got involved or if it was just handled in-house. Like I said, he was banging some chick in a hidden spot in his undercover car. He got away with a slap on the wrist. That's the kind of stuff that internal affairs gets involved in. That's why they have to have such a non-biased attitude towards the officers that they're dealing with. Think about the Ferguson shootings. Think about all these other officer-involved shootings. A lot of times, internal affairs has to get involved with that stuff, and they have to come up with their own opinion, and a lot of it is political. A lot of the decisions that they make are political. I don't care what any other officer says, a lot of them are very political. But it's still a position where you have to maintain that non-biased attitude. And are there corrupt IA investigators? Absolutely. So anyway, guys, I hope that answered your question for today. That is all, and I will be getting out another video hopefully this week. This is my final week in this class for digital forensics, so I'll try to get another video out soon. I hope everybody has a great rest of your Sunday, and I will see you guys very, very soon.